period. I was lucky because at Schofield Barracks they were tough on us, and we learned to be a little tougher than most of the guys that got arrived there as a replacement. And the first people that hit Korea had been living a very soft, nice life in Japan. And so all of a sudden they were introduced to a war that they'd been living in a garrison situation. So we already knew that it was not a garrison situation when we hit it. So we'd had some real good training in Hawaii, and we learned to appreciate the equipment that we had to keep it, and we had better equipment than they did the troops that first arrived in Korea. And so when it got cold, we had shoe packs. But the first troops that hit Korea only had leather boots.
Right.
And they were really freezing. One story I had was my favorite, though. On that New Year's Day, we had an outhouse down below on the forward slope. And forward slope because there wouldn't be anybody walking down there. And that's where and I went down there on the day before New Year's, and I think somebody had watched me then, and they took a nice pot shot at me, and had a near miss, and I scooted back up the hill real quick and waved at them as I went. Many of my friends, when I was in Seattle, joined a Marine Reserve. And there was a company down on Lake Union that was in the Marine Reserve, and they all went to Korea right off the bat. And they lost a lot of those young guys, and they were ill-prepared for the situation they got into. My friend, I turned the clocks up and back and forth, he got hit. And so I carried him piggyback down the mountain. And anyway, that was a very important part of my life, even though it only lasted maybe 7 months, you know, the things you look at and all that. I was kind of lucky. I was in 3 different organizations in Korea, and I never stayed there long enough to get any rank. They asked for volunteers to take some wire up on this mountain, and I thought, hell, taking a wire up on that mountain is easier than doing what I'm doing now, so I took the wire up there. And after that, for a while, I got to be a guy that was doing that a little bit. And then they asked for volunteers to join a special platoon. So I got out of the rifleman to be the wireman. So then I volunteered for a special platoon that we only had to run patrols at night. And so I never got to stay very long to achieve any rank. I remember coming back on the, going through the Golden Gate was a big experience for us, looking up the Golden Gate, and we could hear commercials. That was a big deal on the ship. We could hear the radio commercials and we hadn't heard any of those for a long time. The service was a wonderful experience for the people that were in it. And it was unfortunate for many of them, but it was a wonderful growing experience for the ones that went through World War II. And that was a great time in America's life. It built our country, you know. We became the superpower from the greatest generation. Well, when I was going to school, you know, a lot of people wanted to be engineers, and I didn't ever want to be anything that technical. And so my dad had always been a salesperson, and my dad was very instrumental in many ways of my life. He showed me how easy he could make a living, but it wasn't easy really he was a little bit loose about things. And I learned that I could make a good living selling, but I was never going to be loose about anything. I like to be regimented and run things down the line. One of my first jobs was selling door to door, and as I got through the selling business, I got into the automobile business, and when I joined it, my brother had gotten into his own business, and which was a used car operation. We did quite well in California, but my older brother, had many of the attributes of my father. He was, I'll use the term, a little loosey-goosey. And my ambition was run a nice straight-laced operation for the good of the public that we were doing business with and for the employees employed there. So that was my ambition to operate in that manner. During the years, I think I don't know if I learned enough, but my older brother Jack had a great effect on my life. The time that we worked together, he taught me how to sell cars. He was a great salesperson, and the people loved him. The customers loved him. Everybody loved him. And he was like his dad. Both of them were liked so very much by everybody. Very likable, tell jokes. They were funny, they were handsome. And so he was a big factor in whatever successes I attained later on in life. And so I think that Jack was probably the biggest factor in changing my direction. And when I went down to California to join my older brother, I'd been working at Boeing Airplane Company at nights, 8 hours, and going to school for 3 or 4 hours a day. That was nice. I was making real good money, and I was on a GI Bill. But I decided that when I went temporarily to California and learned that I could make in one day what I earned in 1 week at Boeing Airplane Company, it changed my life. Yeah, he and I had a great philosophy. We never liked a business card. And the business card to Jack and I was a way to say goodbye to somebody. And so I only wanted to talk to my customers one time. 1950 was the year, 55 was the biggest year the car business had ever seen. And that's the year that I broke into the car business. And I wondered if I could sell a car in 1955 because I went 1 week and didn't sell a car. And I was getting desperate to sell one. We had a term back then called breaking the ice. And it took a week for me to break the ice, and it was on a Sunday, and I sold 3 cars that day. And that month, I still remember that first month in the car business, I got 33 out, which was a pretty good job. And maybe I later learned that the average car salesperson might sell 12 a month or some such thing like that. Well, all of a sudden I could do 33.
They would do their own financing on a weekly payment plan and they would take perfectly, I couldn't believe, they would take perfectly original Chevys, 49, 50 Chevys and Fords, and then they paint them white, a maroon red, or kind of a bird shell blue. And that was their standard colors of their car lot, red, white, and blue. And they'd be taking these nice original cars and painting them, but that's what the market was. And they were ambitious. I was down there selling Christmas trees and hung around Michael and his brother, and we'd go up to Las Vegas on the weekends. They had a new 55, 56 Fleetwood Cadillac, and they would work hard and play hard. Saturday afternoon, that car would be headed for Las Vegas at full speed, and they would spend their Sundays and Mondays there, and they were characters.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun in that era. It was a new part of American motoring, brand new to the American public, and and they would listen to what our story was, and so it was a nice time in my life.